Hi everyone, Amputee Bam Bigelow here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Pallbearer album, Foundations of Burden. These guys are an Arkansas metal band who is fantastically good at picking hilariously depressing album titles. Here's their last full-length LP, their debut full-length LP, Sorrow and Extinction, came out in 2012. Enjoyed it quite a bit when it dropped initially. I reviewed it, and today I'm still somewhat fond of it. And this LP of theirs is a traditional doom metal album. It features 5 slow, heavy, dreary metal songs with a strong sense of melody and a very eerie and occult vibe. Think Saint Vitus, think Black Sabbath, but there's something in Pallbearer's music that also reminds me of bands like Jethro Tull. It just feels like they listen to just a touch of progressive rock, enough for it to turn up in their melody writing, in their vocals. This first full-length LP was far from reinventing the wheel, but I thought the production was really good. Maybe the vocals and the lead guitars were a little buried, but the riffs were very heavy and bassy, just gargantuan. And the melodies on this record, lead guitar melodies, I would say, are where Pallbearer gets most of its musical power. To me, this record had just about everything it needed going for it, except variety, varying ideas. This album, to me, while very good in parts, is kind of like a monotone monolith. And from here, I was definitely looking forward to whatever the band would do in the future, given that it involved maybe a little bit more exploration with their sound. Maybe experimenting with some different metal styles, or even writing some more concise songs. Even 2 direct, straight and to the point songs could really do wonders to break up a 5-song track list. I have no real issue with any one song on this album, or really any one song on Pallbearer's newest album too. But how can all of these slow, epic, melodic tracks feel significant or dramatic or stand out if all they're backed up against are slow, melodic, epic tracks? And this album is even longer than its predecessor, and the band does not really spend this extra time diversifying their sound. Not really. This album is a sequel to the first one in like almost every sense. From the sluggish pacing of these songs, to the melodies, to the sort of buried vocals. And again, no song is really horrible on its own. Again, we are getting these haunting, fiery guitar leads, the most sinister of which end up on the very last song here. We get these thick and bassy, heavy riffs, monster drums, and despite being 10 minutes in length, nearly every song here is pretty engaging from beginning to end. These songs are multifaceted, they bring a lot of different parts to the table, and the melodies that they have, they just escalate and escalate and escalate them to the highest point of intensity before the band sort of breaks off into something else or sort of just ends the song entirely. But finding any significant contrast or flow to these songs as a group, as an album, is kind of like trying to read into the finer details of a portrait where the painter decided to only use shades of the color violet to create this image. Nearly everything here reads as the same color, so it all kind of just bleeds together no matter how many times I revisit it. You could take the songs on this record and rearrange them into really any order and you're going to get nearly the same vibe. There are some instrumental highlights on this LP, however. The song Foundations breaks itself down to the point where it just has this lone, eerie guitar playing by itself completely before the band breaks back in with full instrumentation, just all guns blazing. The song Watcher in the Dark has one of the most fiery and intense instrumental builds on the entire LP, and immediately after brings through one of the few keyboards that appears in the track list here. There's also the song Ashes, which I wish was a little bit longer because of how beautiful and tender the keyboards are on this particular track. It's just kind of a shame that this song sort of just fizzles out and serves as nothing more than a mere interlude in between what just would have been yet another 5-track album from Pallbearer where all the songs have a pretty uniform vibe. There's the closer. Like I said, it has some of the most menacing melodies on the entire record, and The Ghost I Used to Be was sort of a lead track from this album to kind of promote toward its release, and while I do find some of the melodies sticky, I'm sort of wondering if I'm gravitating toward this track or if I'm remembering it just because it was merely the first I was introduced introduced to off this LP. Though I will say there is a part where the tempo and the riffs kind of pick up on this track to a point where the song kind of rocks. There are variations between these songs, but the differences again are so slight that the tracks don't really work that fantastically as a whole record from beginning to end. And this time, the band is working with nearly an hour's worth of material, and on their past album, they barely had 45 minutes of fresh, varied material. Again, not a terrible LP, in a lot of ways a likable album, but sort of like a hot bath. It just gets colder and colder and colder the longer you sit in it. I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this thing. Transition, if you've given this a listen, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that is it. Anthony Fantano, Pallbearer, forever.